your lives to celebrate a day of peace, equality and respect, where we believe human rights can lead to greater understanding and tolerance, and we can together change the global scene on planet Earth today. Human Rights Day is observed every year on December the 10th. It commemorates the day in 1948, the United Nations General Assembly adopted the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. This important document lays out our 30 inherent rights, so they're rights by birth that we have. The theme of Human Rights Day this year is our rights, our freedoms, always. This revolves around the theme of rights and freedoms, such things as freedom of speech, freedom of worship, and freedom from want, and freedom from fear. I would now like to introduce our very first special guest speaker. His name is Dr. Sheikh Ramzy. He is a director at the Iqra Islamic Institute and director of Islamic Information Centre. He's also an imam at Oxford. And tonight he will talk about implementing the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and the challenges we must face together to achieve that. And he would also like us to know that he is an unofficial representative of the United Nations. So please welcome Dr. Ramzy.
Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen wa salatu wa salamu ala Sayyid al-Mursaleen amma ba'd. We are not going to have it in Arabic. My dear friends, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, I greet you with Islamic greeting of peace. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. May peace and blessing of Almighty God be upon you all. As you know, on December the 10th, 1948, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights was adopted by 56 members of the United Nations. The vote was unanimously in favor, though there is few countries was absent. The influence of this declaration has been substantial. Its principles have been incorporated into the constitution of more than 185 nations across the globe. This was an excellent step forward for human rights. But the question is it working? Although the declaration is not a legal binding document, the Universal Declaration has achieved the status of customary international law because people regard it as a common standard of achievement for all people and all nations across the globe. This Declaration of Human Rights stand at around 30, as Tracy, our friend, said, and include freedom of speech, again, remind you, rights of women and freedom for women, rights to justice, rights to knowledge, rights to have a decent life together, rights to have freedom of slavery, and right to education, so on. These are part of the universal human right, and that should be enjoyed regardless of gender, nationality, sex, ethnicity, religion, color, or any other categorization. My dear friends, as you see, these are rights that humans have adopted and established to cover themselves like a beautiful garment, to show that these are quality of human being. And if you do otherwise, you are degraded to rank of unbelief. Sisters, Nelson Mandela said, to deny people their human rights is to challenge their very humanity. I say, if you deny others' rights, you are denying your very own rights. Of course, these rights are not a new, we believe as a Muslim, these are, and the religious people, not a new discovery for human. Mankind rights have been in existence since our creation. All divine religions, the scriptures written several thousand years ago, clearly denote these qualities, God-given qualities for mankind. In the Islamic scripture, the Almighty God says, يا أيها الناس إنا خلقناكم من ذكر وأنثى وجعلناكم شعوبا وقبائل لتعارفوا إن أكرمكم عند الله أتقاكم. The meaning, O mankind, behold, we have created you all from a single male and female and have made you into nations and tribes so that you might come to know one another. Verily, the most noblest of you in the sight of God is the most highest. And again, God is very, very amazing. God Almighty says in one of the verses of the Holy Quran that you are all one soul. You are all one soul. ما خلقكم ولا بعثكم إلا كنفس واحدة. إن الله سميع بصير. Creation of you all and resurrection of you all is like a creation and resurrection of one single soul. How amazing. The amazing here, ladies and gentlemen, the amazing here, scientists have revealed that human at the level of DNA are 99.98% similar to each other. Only 0.02% of our DNA differ from any other given human. It is only that 0.02% that make us different eyes, different color, different shape, different sizes. In essence and in matter, we are the same. You are me, and I am you. Doesn't matter female or male. Has been proved. Have a look, Google it. Deny someone their humanity is to deny your own. John F. Kennedy, I'm sure you know. He said, the right of every man are diminished when the right of one man are freed. Ladies and gentlemen, but what makes man? What makes man, despite this, behave like animal? Destruction, killing, raping, torture, terrorism, and so on. We can see. All are human. Brothers and sisters, what is it? This is important. What is it that makes him or her break all the law of humanity? If we find the answer to that, certainly we should find a cure for this disease. The friend Almighty God says, call this disease, call this behavior sin. Everybody knows. Men sin, just like this. In many places in the Holy Scriptures, all the Scriptures, God, the Almighty, says killing and destruction, evil doing on earth is a great sin. وَلَا تُفْسِدُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ. Do not evil on earth. But dear friends, this is a clear instruction. And yet man still finds pleasure in sinning against himself and against the fellow human. How can we stop such a violence against ourselves? You are me, I am you. Because it's a human right. Human rights are being broken everywhere, as our honorable friend Tracy said. But I bring you near. Happening everywhere around us without our realizing. The Pope Francis said, human rights are not only violated by terrorism, repression, cruelty, or assassination, but also by unfair economic structure that create huge inequality. In the same way, Ban Ki-moon said, I am disturbed. He said, I'm disturbed by how a state abuse law on internet access. Internet access. I understand that national security and criminal activity may justify some exceptional use of surveillance. But that is all the more reason to safeguard human rights and freedom. My sisters and brothers, human rights violation and abuse are becoming more and more commonplace, spreading into our very homes. As you know, this is becoming particularly common these days for Muslims. Prejudice against Muslims and the violation of their human right is becoming widespread. Even in the race of the next president of America, with Donald Trump's latest call for Muslims to be denied entry to America. 5 million Muslims in America, they got family. They want to stop. I had some confrontation with Mr. Trump, about foreign policy on the NBC, BBC, and Oxford in a few days, Oxford Times. Let me share it with you. Donald Trump described Muslim refugees as rabid dogs, saying that should be tagged, the Muslim should be tagged like a Jewish. You know, remember the Jewish at the Star of David, yellow Star of David, but you know who is that? Now they wanted to do it to a Muslim. Tagged, and should not be allowed to enter to United States. What sort of policy is that which breaks all the United Nations law? You are talking about 70 years you're doing it, 5 minutes is broken and nobody holding it. If it was anybody else's, he would have been arrested. Talking fascism is wrong. In respect to such a comment, I replied, Donald Trump is against the human right. America deserves a president who can bring unity, freedom, and peace into the world, whole world. This man is not a peacemaker and has no respect for human rights. His foreign policy is to degrade to divide humanity with one law for the Muslim and one law for the rest of the population. While Jimmy Carter, the ex-president, the former president, said, human right is the soul of our foreign policy, because human right is the very soul of our sense of nation. Where did that come? Brother and sister in Islam, or in friends, in humanity, in the face of such a crippling attack on our humanity, it is easy to lose hope. So forget to let it go. That's right. But we should never give up. Never give up our support for the implementation of human rights. Never. Even if our support is small and insignificant. Archbishop Desmond Tutu said, never let anyone tell you that what you are doing is insignificant. I say, every little helps. Every step in the right direction is the right step toward peace, justice, and freedom for all. And the Dalai Lama said, peace can only last where human rights are respected, where the people are fed, and where the individuals and nations are free. Brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, we together, united can ensure that human rights become the global garment to clothe humanity that they were intended to be. We just need to start with the possible and start with the strategy in mind. In my opinion, this should center on unity and education. With knowledge come power. Those who are empowered with the knowledge will not only know their right, but demand it. It is wrong to curse those people who are breaking human rights law. It achieves nothing. Let us instead pray for them, that they are guided and educated and realize the value of quality, freedom, and justice. My friends, I say, instead of cursing the darkness, light a candle. I hope that today we can do just that. God bless you all. Thank you for listening.
Now I'd like to show you a very powerful video that I found that was made on behalf of Amnesty International, and it's capturing 50 years of standing up for freedom, and the filmmaker is a gentleman called Carlos Lascano. So please enjoy this. human rights and where we stand today with regards to human rights.
Human rights is, geez, that's a good question. Human rights.
Wow.
I don't even know how to give that a definition.
I would probably have to do a little bit of homework or something.
Any right that I think just as a normal, human,
The rights that humans have.
desarrollar all debates.
Su mindset.
Tú le puedes preguntar a 20 personas y te van a dar 20 diferentes opiniones.
Non saprei, è una domanda complicatissima.
Stuff is that we just take for granted that they're there, but we don't even consider what they are.
Human rights are the rights you have simply because you're human. It's how you instinctively expect and deserve to be treated as a person, like the right to live freely, to speak your mind, and to be treated as an equal. There are many kinds of rights. Most apply to a certain group. But human rights are the only ones that apply to absolutely everyone, everywhere. That means kids, old people, poor people, basketball players, garbage men, rappers, teachers, Africans, Indians, Albanians, Christians, Muslims, Kabbalists, atheists, your mom, your dad, your next door neighbor, and you all have the exact same human rights. In other words, they're universal. But the question remains, what are they?
Name the human rights?
What the human rights are?
The right to live, equality between all peoples.
Right to religion, the right to...
Is there supposed to be a list somewhere I should be aware of?
According to the United Nations, there are a total of 30 human rights, which are usually lumped together and called simply human rights. They're all listed out in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which is the world's most widely accepted document on the subject. But it was a long time in coming. At first, there were no human rights. If you were in with the right crowd, you were safe. If you weren't, well, you weren't. But then a guy named Cyrus the Great decided to change all that. After conquering Babylon, he did something completely revolutionary. He announced that all slaves were free to go. He also said people had the freedom to choose their religion, no matter what crowd they were a part of. They documented his words on a clay tablet known as the Cyrus Cylinder. And just like that, human rights were born. The idea spread quickly to Greece, to India, and eventually to Rome. They noticed that people naturally followed certain laws, even if they weren't told to. They called this natural law, but it kept getting trampled on by those in power. Not until 1,000 years later in England did they finally get a king to agree that no one can overrule the rights of the people, not even a king. People's rights were finally recognized, and they were now safe from those in power. Kind of. It still took a bunch of British rebels declaring their independence before the king got the point that all men are created equal. Which isn't to say he liked the idea, but he couldn't stop them, and America was born. The French immediately followed with their own revolution for their own rights. Their list was even longer, and they insisted that these rights weren't just made up. They were natural. The Roman concept of natural law had become natural rights. Unfortunately, not everyone was so thrilled. In France, a general named Napoleon decided to overthrow the new French democracy and crown himself emperor of the world. He almost succeeded, but the countries of Europe joined forces and defeated him. Human rights was again a hot topic. They drew up international agreements, broadly granting many rights across Europe. But only across Europe. The rest of the world somehow still didn't qualify. Instead, they got invaded, conquered, and consumed by Europe's massive empires. But then a young lawyer from India decided enough was enough. His name was Mahatma Gandhi, and in the face of violence, he insisted that all people of Earth had rights, not just in Europe. Eventually, even Europeans started to agree. But it wasn't going to be that easy. 2 world wars erupted. Hitler exterminated half the Jewish population of Earth in horrifying Nazi death camps. And all told, 90 million people died. Never had human rights been so terrifyingly close to extinction. And never had the world been more desperate for change. So the countries of Earth banded together and formed the United Nations. Their basic purpose was to reaffirm faith in fundamental human rights, in the dignity and worth of the human person. But what were human rights? Were they the proclamations of Cyrus, the natural laws of Rome, the declarations of France? Everyone seemed to have a slightly different idea of what human rights should be. But under the supervision of Eleanor Roosevelt, they finally agreed on a set of rights that applied to absolutely everyone. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights. The French concept of natural rights had finally become human rights. So, in summary, at first, only a few lucky people had any rights, until one of those guys decided, hey, other people should have some rights too, which was great, except not everyone agreed. And it only took a few thousand years of fighting and declarations and more fighting until everyone finally agreed that human rights should apply to everyone. And they all lived happily ever after. Except for one little problem. If people have the right to food and shelter, why are 16,000 children dying of starvation every day? 1 every 5 seconds. If people have freedom of speech, why are thousands in prison for speaking their minds? If people have the right to education, why are over 1 billion adults unable to read? If slavery has truly been abolished, why are 27 million people still enslaved today? More than twice as many as in 1800. The fact is, when it was signed, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights did not have the force of law. It was optional. And despite many more documents, conventions, treaties, and laws, it's still little more than words on a page. So the question is, who will make those words a reality?
I have a dream today.
When Dr. King marched for racial equality, he was marching for rights that had been guaranteed by the United Nations for almost 2 decades. But still, he marched. When Nelson Mandela stood up for social justice in the 1990s, his country had already agreed to abolish such discrimination for almost 40 years. But still, he fought. Those who fight today against torture, poverty, and discrimination are not giants or superheroes. They're people. Kids, mothers, fathers, teachers, free-thinking individuals who refuse to be silent, who realize that human rights are not a history lesson. They're not words on a page. They're not speeches or commercials or PR campaigns. They are the choices we make every day as human beings. They are the responsibility we all share to respect each other, to help each other, and to protect those in need. As Eleanor Roosevelt said, where, after all, do universal human rights begin? In small places close to home. So close and so small that they cannot be seen on any maps of the world. Yet they are the world of the individual person, the neighborhood he lives in, the school or college he attends, the factory, farm, or office where he works. Such are the places where every man, woman, and child seeks equal justice, equal opportunity, equal dignity without discrimination. Unless these rights have meaning there, they have little meaning anywhere.